Alright guys, Rogue Nation here with you. I'm with James McLennan for Pinellas County Sheriff. We're going to do an interview here with him today. If you haven't been on his Facebook page, James McLennan for Pinellas County Sheriff, it's a great read. He's got some good ideals. He has my backing, which as a lot of you know, I'm very skeptical about people in authority, and this gentleman has won me over. And so let's get started right away, James.
It's good to meet you.
Nice to meet you, sir. And do you want to give any backstory, or do you want to just go right into the campaign, or how would you like to?
Well, the backstory, I gave him a little earlier, the long version, but for the Reader's Digest version, basically I was a victim of some pretty intensive corruption of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department, and it was not just a few individual bad apples, as they say. It was a rotten barrel all the way up to the top across the entire agency, including Child Protective Investigations, the investigation units, the sheriff's offices, the patrol deputies. Everywhere it was permeated with corruption, and they all worked together within this corruption. And when I realized that they have violated my rights in so many different ways and lied and cheated and filed false reports, everything you could think of, and when I reported it to Sheriff Galtieri, he wouldn't do anything. There's no way to change that. If it's corrupt from the inside out, how do you change something like that? And I decided that I would run for sheriff in 2016, so I informed Sheriff Galtieri that I would run against him to expose his corruption. And his response was to illegally track me with a stingray, falsely arrest me on 4 false felony charges. He arrested me the day before my custody case so that I would lose my daughter. And he tried to put me in jail to keep me from running in the race. Now, I don't know, I grew up in a different America. I grew up in an America where you don't falsely arrest your political opponents to win the election.
Right, that sounds more like a North Korea play or China.
Exactly. And so I was able to, of course, prove all the charges were false, prove that the deputies lied. I was able to win 100% of the custody of my daughter. And so I was able to get through all that. I did run in 2016. I obtained over 100,000 votes here in Pinellas County, which set a non-party affiliate record. And I'm back in 2020, and I think that I've got a real good chance of winning as long as the people of Pinellas County understand the options that are being offered to them at this point.
Okay, and some of the options that I'd like to talk about with you today is the unenforceability or the unenforcement of the marijuana laws that is a big part of your campaign that you're running on. I see this as a great landmark campaign as far as that goes. I know for a long time a lot of people, not just in Florida, Pinellas County, but in the whole country, have been wanting something like this. But as you know, it's hard to get the government to listen unless you're a multi-billionaire to what you want. So do you want to go in a little bit on your marijuana non-criminalization that you plan to enact once in office?
Yeah, actually, you say it's hard to get the government to listen. I think it's more insidious than that. The government knows what's right and refuses to do it because there is a benefit for them to refuse to do it. The for-profit prison, yep. The mass incarceration of citizens, the control of the citizens, the expanding police state, all of that plays into why the government would not want to decriminalize marijuana. And so when you go within the government system, like they did here in Florida, where they had a big campaign and they went through the medical marijuana in 2016, they passed it with an overwhelming majority of voters here in Florida, and we won the medical marijuana. Yay, what a big victory. But Tallahassee wasn't going to have any of that. What they did then is they started passing all these laws and regulations, and you can't smoke it, and you can't have this, and it's got to be so many feet from a school, and you have to get a license, and we're going to take this money from you and that money from you. And then local administrations started saying, well, we're going to prohibit it in our community, and so this big landmark victory was then stolen and whittled away down to nothing, basically, by the same government that supposedly we petitioned to have this done because we wanted it done. And I find that going to Tallahassee and begging them for rights that we should automatically have is not only a waste of time, it's a foolish endeavor, because even if you do win, like they did with the medical marijuana, they're just going to restrict it and pass so many laws that it's not going to change anything.
You know, you bring up an excellent point, and it's something that was illustrated a couple years ago when I think it was President Bush was in office, when he lowered the tax rate for the Americans, and everybody was like, hey, we got lower taxes. Well, research showed across the board that wherever federal taxes lacked, the state income tax or the state taxes went up. So there really was no net benefit from that. And you're saying pretty much the same thing with the legalization of the medical marijuana here in Florida went on.
Yes, I think that I think it's a carrot that the government is never going to let us achieve. That there's always going to be a government interference, a government intervention, and the highest thing that they can hope for, the cannabis community or the freedom community, is that they will have a decriminalization, or legalization of recreational. But even that is going to be fraught with overtaxing, over expenses, over regulation. The government is going to become the drug dealer, and what they're going to do is they're going to provide you with a much poor quality product at a much greater price, and there's still going to be a lot of loopholes to jump through.
Right.
So what I propose is something a little different. In each individual county, we have a sheriff, and that sheriff is elected to represent the people of that county, and they have the right, the people have the right to elect a sheriff that offers them the policing that they want and the law enforcement that they want. It's a very unique opportunity, and it's a very powerful vote for the people in every county. But here in Pinellas County and in other counties, the public is being fooled to think that we only have the option of picking from the few candidates that the police industry itself chooses for us. You have to pick from the police industry. You have to pick someone who's been in there for 20 or 30 years and already well indoctrinated into the police mindset of corruption, and it's us against them. Well, in reality, you don't. The Pinellas County Sheriff is just like any other elected official. It's nothing more than an administrative position. You don't have to wear a badge to administer the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department.
Absolutely.
And if you are already indoctrinated, you're not going to allow any police reforms. You're not going to do anything that goes against the government. One of the things I was shocked to find out is that if you are a police officer or a sheriff here in Florida, you swear an oath, and that oath says basically that I swear and affirm that I will protect and defend the Constitution and the government of the United States and the state of Florida. So they're swearing to the Constitution, which we know they violate.
Right.
Then they're swearing to protect the government of the United States and then the governments of the state of Florida.
Which we know they do, because if you've seen any First Amendment auditing videos,
Exactly.
you know that the government, when a government employee calls, even for something as a suspicious person, you've got 4 units there within 5 minutes. But as you, a private citizen, would call for a burglary, you might wait 3 or 4 hours, and maybe a cop will stroll by and take a report and throw it in the trash on the way out. So,
or search you and arrest you for having
if they don't shoot you, if they don't for being suspicious.
So the point is that we have the right to the law enforcement we deserve, and we have the right to the law enforcement that we want. And as sheriff, I have the power, I have the right to not decriminalize, to not change the law, to not legalize, but I absolutely have the power to deprioritize the enforcement of that particular law. Just like you see up in Virginia, where the sheriffs are getting together and they're saying we're not going to enforce gun ban.
The red flag laws.
Yeah, we're not going to enforce. We're not going to go out and we're not going to seize weapons under any kind of legislation that they pass. That's a good example of a sheriff standing up for the people of Pinellas County. And when I swear an oath after I'm elected, I want to have it actually put in my oath that I'm there to protect and serve the people, which is absent from the oath that every sheriff has taken in the state of Florida. I want to be here for the people of Florida. And one of the things I want to give the people of Florida is the policing that they want in the area of marijuana. 67% of the people here in Pinellas County in the state of Florida want legalized recreational marijuana, not because 67% of the people in Florida smoke pot, but they want the ability to not have people put in jail, not have people arrested. And as taxpayers, we should have the right to not pay $3,800 a month to have you sitting in jail.
Right.
Okay. Here in Pinellas County, we spend $500 million a year on what I call the Pinellas punishment machine.
Right.
And every single man, woman, and child that lives in Pinellas County pays about $500 each out of their pocket to make sure people that smoke pot are in jail or other crimes. And I think that we can whittle that down. I think we can take that money that's being wasted on marijuana enforcement and have it go towards some of the 80% of the crimes that the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department doesn't enforce, doesn't solve, and doesn't help the people with.
Right. On your webpage, I had just come across it was a term that I didn't know. Was the exceptionally cleared as far as the rape cases go. And, I was shocked to find out what a low percentage of cases are actually solved. And, it boggles my mind that we're paying more and more money and like you said, the percentage of cases over the years that have been actually solved remained pretty much the same.
Yes.
Um, and I've always heard that 70% of burglaries go unsolved, and the people don't get their property back, and such as that. And I didn't know the mechanism per se that they were using to say they had won those cases when they actually hadn't even really done any work on those cases. Like you said, some cases hadn't been assigned a detective, or excuse me, the Tampa Bay Times, the story on them said some cases hadn't even been assigned a detective, and they'd been exceptionally cleared,
Yeah, I mean,
to boost the numbers up.
exactly. I don't know if how you would feel, but if that was my sister, or my mother, my daughter, my aunt, my uncle, some relative of mine that had been viciously raped, and I find out that the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department didn't even assign a detective to it because it didn't matter to them, and they just swept it off to the side. They didn't process the DNA kits, which a lot of sheriff's departments don't do because they say it's a cost factor, but yet they have $80,000 luxury SUVs. There will be 3 and 4 Pinellas County Sheriff's deputies that pull over the variant speeder on Gulf Boulevard. I drive everywhere I go, and I see Pinellas County Sheriff's deputies' cars parked behind churches, in parking lots, back a little out of the way where they can sit and take a nap. And then I see these same detectives' cars in all of their driveways at home. If you're a fireman, you don't get to take the fire truck at home at the end of the night,
Right.
so that we have to buy another fire truck for the night shift.
Right.
But that's what we're doing here in Pinellas County. Then we're paying for their taxes, their gas to drive back and forth to work every day, and providing them with a vehicle. Do we do that for teachers or any other government employee?
Right.
No. So there's so much waste going on in the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department, and in my opinion, those funds are not being expended in a way where they could help and benefit the community, like properly investigating the rapes that they get reported. They have 15% arrest rate for rapes in Pinellas County. That's pathetic.
Right. That's almost, to me, that's almost seeming like a go ahead to rapists, because I mean, if you're just playing a numbers game, which, let's be honest, that's what criminals do. They play a numbers game. It's risk versus reward. So if the risk is I got a 15% chance getting caught, I mean that's not a big risk. I mean that's almost saying, hey, you've got a pretty good shot of being a serial rapist here, and we don't mind.
Well, there might also be another component to that. I personally know of a story where a Pinellas County Sheriff's deputy named Paul Martin had raped a woman, and the woman actually worked at the Hillsborough County State Attorney's Office, so this was not a maybe she's not telling the truth kind of a scenario. That was reported to the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department and to Sheriff Galtieri, and they did not prosecute that case. There was never an arrest. They did nothing to that particular deputy. And that particular deputy also had been involved in a case where he solicited a 12-year-old girl for sex over text messages in exchange for a tent and some candy. And there was a multiple, you do this for me and I'll bring you over the tent. You give me favors, I'll do favors for you. And that deputy actually showed up at that girl's house with a tent, a bag of gummy bears, and a flashlight. And I know for a fact that was reported to the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department, and the Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Galtieri, actually instructed Child Protective Investigations to not investigate the incident because it was a Pinellas County deputy. So you have things going on behind the scenes there where there might not be investigating rapes because it might find out that one of their own members
Right.
is the perpetrator.
Right. And I've actually seen, I want to say Lakeland, although don't quote me, but a town here where they were running a sex sting operation, and they actually caught, I believe it was like a lieutenant or a captain of
Not
their own
unusual.
force. Yeah, so we can see why that they want to try to keep this stuff on the down low. Um, what about the red flag laws? I haven't heard much about them in Florida, or the confiscation of weapons in Florida like in Virginia, but I know in Nevada there's, I think, 24 out of the 27 sheriffs out there that have signed up to not confiscate weapons. That's a big issue, I'm sure, among Second Amendment supporters here in Pinellas County as well. What do you feel on that? Or are you behind the no legislation to take Americans' weapons, or how do you stand on that issue?
Well,